6-9. Today we're going to be talking about fractions, decimals, and percents. So basically, fractions, decimals, and percents is all three different ways of representing the same thing. So you're talking about a part of something. So whether you're saying a fraction of something, or if you're saying this much percent or a decimal, any way you write it, it's all talking about the same type of thing. We're talking about a part. So we can go ahead and we can change fractions to decimals and fractions to percents and decimals to percents and vice versa. So basically that's what we're going to be talking about today. How to change from the different forms of the same number. So for example, let's go ahead and talk about going from percents to decimals. So if you're going to start with your percent and they say write this as a decimal, you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left away from the percent sign. So in this case we have 20%. Now since there's no decimal in our percent, our decimal is automatically at the end. So you would take this decimal, move it 2 places away from the percent sign. So think of it, you don't want it to be a percent anymore, so you're going to move it away. And you're moving 2 times always. So you're going to move it 2 times to the left, and you're going to have 0.2, so, or 2/10, however you want to read it. So 0.2 will be your decimal from 20% because we moved our decimal 2 places to the left. Now wonder if I started with a decimal and I wanted to change it to a percent. You would just do the opposite. Instead of moving it 2 places to the left, you're going to move it 2 places to the right. So we have 0.2. So we're going to take that decimal and we're going to move it 2 places to the right. So think of it, you want it to be a percent, so you're going to move the decimal towards the percent sign. So we're going to move it 2 places to the right, and we're going to have 20%. So now let's go ahead and talk about going from percents to fractions. So if you're going to start with a percent, you're going to put that percent over 100 always and simplify. So sometimes you're going to have a fraction of a percent, like 1/2%. You're still going to have to put that number over 100. No matter what number it is. Whether it's over 100, like if you had 125%, you would still put that over 100. So anytime you're going to make it a fraction, put that percent over 100, no matter what the percent is. So in this case, we have 20%. So in order to change it to a fraction, we're going to put 20 over 100, because 100 is our magic number here. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify it down. So always simplify. So don't leave it as 20 over 100. That's only partially corrected, because you did the first step, but you didn't do the second step, which was simplify. So we simplify it down to 1/5. Alright, now if we're going to go from a fraction to a percent, we have 2 different options here. Now, one of them isn't always going to work, and one of them will always work. So if you want to switch back and forth, that's fine with me. If you want to stick with one form, that's fine with me as well. So if I was going to go with 1/5, and I said, well, what is 1/5 in fraction, 1/5 in percent form? We would take this 1/5. The first way is by making it a decimal. So make your fraction a decimal, then move your decimal place value, just like we did over here, about moving your decimal to make it a percent. So if we are going to do it that way, you could do 1 divided by 5 and get 0.2, and then move your decimal 2 places to the right and get 20%. Or you can take 1/5 and try to get the denominator equal to 100, and then that numerator will be the percent. So for example, if I wanted 1/5, I need to go ahead and get the denominator equal to 100. So I have to think, 5 times what is going to give me 100? And so since 5 times 20 gives me 100, I'm going to multiply the numerator by 20 as well. And we're going to get 20 over 100, which means that that's 20%. So you can do it that way. Now the reason why this way doesn't always work is that I wonder if your denominator doesn't go into 100. Like if it was 21. 21 doesn't evenly go into 100. So that way wouldn't be like easiest to do that way. So this would only be something if you have like a 5 or a 10 or something, a 25, any kind of denominator that goes into 100. If that's easier for you, you can do it that way. Or you can go ahead and just stick with changing it to a decimal and then change the decimal to a percent. So either way you want to do it is fine with me. Let's go ahead and look at some problems. Alright, before we move on to doing some problems on our own, I want to just look at a few problems that have already been done for us and kind of talk through those, and then we'll go ahead and practice some to see if we can do them. So first of all, let's start with 25%. Let's talk about how I want to make 25% a fraction. So let's try to remember what I talked about in the just a second ago. And so if I want to make 25% a fraction, I'm going to always put it over 100 and then simplify. So I have to put 25 over 100. simplify it down, and get 1/4. So now I'm going to go ahead and take kind of the next step and go from a fraction and change it to a decimal. So this is kind of like a review. So if we want to go from a decimal to a fraction to a decimal, we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator, and then we will have our decimal. So in this case, since it's 1/4, we're going to divide 1 divided by 4, or you can write it as 1 divided by 4, and then you'll get 0.25. All right, let's go ahead and look at this example right here. Now this is the main reason, these two examples, why I wanted us to look at these first. So here we have 8 1/3%. Okay, we're going to go ahead and change this to a fraction. Now you might say, Miss Glenn, it's already a fraction. But it's not, because since it has this percent, it's just a fraction of a percent. So it looks like a fraction, but if there's a percent sign here, the percent overrules the fraction. It's not a fraction, it's a percent. So we're going to go ahead and just like we did over here, we put 25 over 100, we're going to put this weird mixed number percent over 100. So we have 8 1/3 over 100. So now what do? We need to go ahead and rewrite it a little bit so it's a little bit easier for us to solve. So what I did was change this mixed number into a improper fraction. So I did 3 times 8, and I got 24, plus 1 gives me 25. So I have 25 over 3. And now I'm going to go ahead and multiply. Instead of dividing by 100, I'm going to multiply by 1 over 100, which is the same thing as dividing. So if you see this 100 still in the denominator, so it just shows you that we're doing the same operation. So if we do 25 over 3, which is this mixed number in an improper fraction form, times 1 over 100, we're going to get 25 over 300, and then we just simplify it down to 1 over 12. Alright, so now let's go ahead and change this 1/12 to a decimal. So we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, so 1 divided by 12, and we are going to get 0.083 about. The 3 kind of repeats, so we're just going to leave it like this. Alright, let's go ahead and look at this example right here. So we have 150%. So if we want to change 150% to a fraction, we are always going to put it over 100. So even though 150 is bigger than 100, that's fine. We just always put it over 100. So we have 150 over 100, and then we're going to simplify it down and get 3 halves, or 1 1/2. Okay, so as soon as you divide out all of the common numbers, you're going to get with 3 over 2, or 1 1/2. Alright, and now let's go ahead and change that to a decimal, and that's going to give us 1.5. Alright, so let's go ahead and try some of our examples. Alright, let's look at the first example. We have 135%, and we're going to change it to a fraction. So anytime you're starting with a percent and you're going to a fraction, you always put it over what number? 100. So it always talks about 100 because percent means per 100, and we're always basing it off of that. So we have 135 out of 100, and then we're going to go ahead and simplify it down, and we're going to get 27 over 20. So that's going to give you your final answer. So basically all I did was divide out. So I divided out of 4, and then I got 27 over 20. And that's my fraction. Alright, let's go ahead and look at 17 1/2%, and we're going to change it to a fraction. You might look at it and say, well, there's a fraction in it, so I'm just going to take off my percent. But that is not how you do it. We're going to take this mixed number, we're going to put 17 1/2, we're going to put it over 100. So think of it, in order to take this percent sign off, you have to put it over 100, or move a decimal. In this case, we're trying to make it a fraction, so we're putting it over 100. So now we need to go ahead and kind of rework our problem a little bit, so it's a little bit easier for us to solve. So we're going to go ahead and change things around a little bit. First thing what I'm going to do is change this to a mixed number, which if I do 2 times 17 plus 1, that's going to give me 35 over 2. And I'm going to move this 100 over to the side, and I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to multiply instead. So I'm going to do 35 over 2 times 1 over 100, and I'm going to go ahead and get 35 over 200. And now the last step is to simplify. So I'm going to go ahead and divide out of 5, and I'm going to be left with 7 over 40. That's once I simplify. Alright, let's look at number 3. This one's very similar to what we did up here. So how we had 17 1/2, we have 33 1/3%. And we're going to change it to a fraction. Again, you do not just take off this percent and make it a fraction, because that is not correct. We need to do a few more steps than that. So we're going to take 33 and 1/3, and we're going to put it over 100 because you always put the percent over 100 if you're going to change it to a fraction. So we're going to put 33 1/3% over 100. Now it's just 33 1/3 over 100. And now we're going to go ahead and make this first an improper fraction. So I'm going to make this 33 times 3 times, or plus 1 is going to give you 100 over 3. And now we're going to go ahead and move this 100 off to the side. Put it over here, multiply it across. So now what I see, I'm going to cross cancel real quick. So I'm going to make this a 1, make this a 1, because I divided out 100 on both of those. And now I'm going to multiply across. So 1 times 1 gives you 1, 3 times 1 gives you 3. And so now since I cross canceled, I'm already simplified. So it's 1/3. Alright, let's go ahead and practice changing from a fraction to a percent. So in order to do that, we need to go ahead and, I'm just going to go ahead and change it to a decimal first. So I'm going to do 2 divided by 15. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to get 0.13333, and that 3 goes off. So now we need to go ahead and change this decimal, 0.133, and change that to a percent. So in order to do that, I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move it 2 places, always 2 places to the right towards the percent sign, because I'm thinking I want it to be a percent, so I'm going to move it towards the percent sign. I'm going to move it 2 places this way, and we're going to have 13.3%. So as soon as I moved my decimal, it made it a percent. Alright, let's look at number 5. We have 7 over 1,600, and we're going to change that fraction to a percent. So don't get overwhelmed with the bigger numbers, just do the same steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is 7 divided by 1,600. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to get 0.004375. So now I have my decimal. I'm going to change that decimal to a percent. So I have 0.004375, and I'm going to go ahead and move my decimal now. And I move it 2 places all the time, 2 places to the right towards the percent sign since I want it to be a percent. I move it 2 places, and do not be alarmed, it's okay if you have decimals as percents. So I'm going to just round it, so 0.4%. Alright, let's go ahead and look at our last problem. We have 5/16, and we're going to change that to a percent. So in order to do that, I'm going to first change it to a decimal. So I'm going to do 5 divided by 16. So as soon as I do that, I'm going to get 0.3125. Alright, and we're going to take that decimal and change it to a percent. 3125. So I'm going to go ahead and take my decimal place, and I'm going to move it 2 places because we always move it 2 places. And I'm going to move it 2 places to the right, so I'm moving towards the percent sign because I want it to be a percent. So I'm going to move it 2 places, and I'm going to round. So I'm going to have about 31.3%. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this lesson. If you need to watch it one more time, which I probably would if I were you, just to make sure that you know exactly what you need to do so that you'll feel really confident for tomorrow, alright? So if you have even more questions after you watch it again, go ahead and look in your textbook. There are some examples that have already been done for you. And always bring questions to class. I'll be happy to answer them. Alright, let's go do some.
Alright, you have 5 problems to do for me. Numbers 1 and 2, go ahead and change the percent to a fraction and put it in simplest form. Numbers 3 and 4, change that fraction and make it a percent and round to the nearest tenth. In number 5, it says Moses has finished 11 out of 15 homework questions. To the nearest hundredth, what percent of the homework is complete? Alright, go ahead and try those problems. We'll see what you get tomorrow.